Hello everybody, this is GeneralJannis, and today we are looking at the Nightbringer, a very dangerous enemy unit that it's important maybe to know how to face. And now, thankfully, it has gone up from 255 points to 295 points. But let's take a look. So today, the 27th of April, I'll be going on vacation next week, so don't expect any new video next week. The new points came up as I was doing this, preparing this video. For Death Guard, only the Hellbrood changed for 130 points. Chaos Knights were unaffected. A lot of the Chaos factions didn't actually get so much changes. The Necrons, being a very high-performing and dangerous opponent, they've seen some points increase, especially the Nightbringer. Yeah, with Necrons being so prevalent, it's probably possible that if you are playing tournaments, you will be facing a Necron list. Probably they will have the Nightbringer. So in this video, I was just thinking to look at what it can do, its data sheets, its damage output, and especially versus Chaos units, if you're playing Death Guard or 1000 Sounds or something like this, what its durability is and how could Chaos units counter it, overall per point comparison, and then summary and final thoughts. So looking at the datasheet of the Ctan Shard of the Nightbringer, the Necron dangerous opponent unit, it's now 295 points. Before the balance, it was 255 points. It has a movement of 6 inches, high toughness of 11 inches. It always saves on a 4+ with its invulnerable save, so basically the AP doesn't make any sense. It has 12 wounds, 6 leadership, and 4 objective control. It has the reanimation protocols of the Necrons, which allows it to regain D3 wounds if it has been damaged. So if you do a little bit of cheap damage here and there, it will probably just heal itself up again. It has a ranged weapon of 18 inches, the Gaze of Death, which is not bad, D3 attacks, but with D6 plus 3 damage, so it can do quite some nasty damage against vehicle, also with shooting. But its main strength is the melee weapons, the scythe that it has, strike and sweep profile, so it could counter both, let's say, heavy opponents and more, let's say, infantry horde type enemies. And it can drain life in the fight phase. It can also add some mortal wounds to the things that are 6-inch within its range. And the most important ability is the Necrodermis, that each time an attack is allocated to the Nightbringer, the damage characteristic of the attack is halved. Necrodermis, of course, coming from Greek, as many of the nice words, let's say necros, dead, and derma is skin in Greek, so necrodermis means dead skin. So his dead skin is basically, all right, you shoot me, but I don't feel anything. He also has a 5+ feel no pain on top of that. So you can see on the table to the right that if you are attacking it with something like a damage 1 weapon, it's of course not affected by the halving damage. But if you are attacking it with a damage 2, 3, 4, something like that weapon, you can see the damage after being halved and expected after 5+ feel no pain. And halving in Warhammer, you do that before applying plus or minus modifiers, and you're rounding up. So a damage 3 would be 1.5, then it's rounded up to 2. And we can see even if you are attacking it with a very heavy damage weapon, let's say D6 plus 4, after the 5+ feel no pain, on average you would be doing 2.7 damage there. For a D6 plus 4 weapon would be, for example, the Brigand's Melta Spear at 12 inches. So really effective at taking down the damage with the halving and the 5+ feel no pain. So basically the only weakness that we can see from the datasheet is the 6-inch move. So if we look at what it can do versus the normal targets I'm simulating, so we can see that the Nightbringer is, we can see its weapons and then the damage versus a variety of targets here. It's very strong in melee, like I said, with the 2 profiles, so it could be killing, let's say, 10 chaff type guards or termagants or something like this. 6 marine equivalents in melee with a sweep profile. And then 2 Terminators killed with a strike profile, so 7.5 wounds on average. If we add the shooting, that's 3 killed. And then the major damage is happening versus the vehicles like a Rhino or Predator, or even the Land Raider can be one-shotted by the Nightbringer. Also, the small knights like the Armiger here can be taken out. For big knights, it can also do quite high damage. And on top of this, you have additional mortal wound damage in melee. On average, it would be one mortal wound. Let's say it's a 50-50 chance to deal the mortal wounds, and a D3 on average 2 mortal wounds. That would be adding one mortal wound on top of what is shown in the list. And now looking at the Nightbringer's damage output versus some Chaos units. So we have the first row is mostly Death Guard here. So we can see Cultist in melee, he can take out 10 of the Cultists. The Poxwogger is a little bit more protected with their Feel No Pain, but not so much. So 10 Poxwoggers with shooting and melee would be perishing. He can take out 4 bases of Nurglings just in melee. The Plague Marines, he can take out 5 Plague Marines with his melee attack. Blight Lords, as we saw with the Terminators before, 7.5 wounds in melee. The Death Shroud are a little bit more protected. The 2 will be killed, but it's less damage here because they have higher protection versus high strength attacks. And then it can take out a Mephitic Blightholder or Plagueburst Crawler. So you need to be careful with the vehicles, that if he charges them, you are losing the points basically. Mortarion is a bit more protected. You would be losing seven wounds or something like that if you have Mortarion on the list. If we look at the Chaos Knights, a War Dog will be taking 18 wounds in melee, so it's basically bye-bye War Dog. And even the Big Knights, 18 wounds for a Big Knight in melee, and let's say 3-4 wounds shooting. So it could be taking out a big Chaos Knight. So you have to be careful with the Nightbringer, but it's very difficult for Chaos Knights to screen it off, and so you don't lose so many points as versus the Nightbringer. For the Thousand Suns, if we have, let's say, Rubric Marines, they are losing quite a lot of Marines in melee and shooting, so that would be at least 7 dead here. The Scarab Terminators, they have the same protection as the Death Shroud Terminators, so can handle a bit the Nightbringer. The Magnus, the red, with the Discussion Resilience, he will be taking 9 wounds in melee, so that's with the damage reduction. And we see, for example, Angron also will be taking 9-10 wounds. So a dangerous opponent indeed, the Nightbringer. And finally, just a small summary about the Guard equivalent, the Marine equivalent, Terminator, and so on, light vehicles, etc. And in this table, I'm looking at basically the Nightbringer's durability and what type of damage could the typical Chaos units do versus the Nightbringer. And we see, for example, if we have a War Dog bring and shooting at the Nightbringer, we will be doing 3.3 wounds. The halving of the damage is really tough, and even at 12 inch, it cannot do much more damage. If you only shoot it with one War Dog, let's say, then next turn it will be healing, and yeah, it's basically to no avail if you don't pull a very big pool of fire against the Nightbringer. Death Guard have a counter built in Mortarion. Mortarion's Lord of the Death Guard aura allows other Death Guard units within 6 inches of Mortarion to ignore any modifiers to the characteristics, also the damage characteristic of the weapons. So in this case, you can see, for example, if we have a Plagueburst Crawler that can see the Nightbringer, it will only be doing 1.5 wounds. So that's with the Entropy Cannons, the Mortar, and everything. That's almost nothing. Even if you have 3 of them shooting, it will be only 4.5 wounds here on average. If the Plagueburst Crawlers are within Mortarion's aura, you get more damage, 2.6 wounds, but it's still not enough to take him out. We see also a Predator Annihilator, the Predator Destructor with Glass Cannon Sponsons, 2 wounds without Mortarion, 3 wounds with Mortarion. A Fetid Bloodthorn Speeders are not good against the Nightbringer. A War Dog Carnivore here in melee with a Slaughter Claw, 4 wounds. That's something. With a Tank Shock stratagem, you could be dealing 3 more mortal wounds here. A big squad of Death Shroud, 6 Death Shroud in melee, would be doing 3 wounds. They will be losing 2 guys, as we saw in the previous table. And even if Mortarion is close, they will be doing 6 wounds, so taking half the life of the Nightbringer. But you can see that it can tank really a lot of damage here. If we have 10 Plague Marines, they equipped with Meltas, Blight Launchers, and a Spewer, and heavy Plague Weapons and the Plasma Gun for the champion. A big squad with Biologus shooting at 6 inches, where the Melta is at Melta range. They will only be doing 2.6 wounds shooting at the Nightbringer. If Mortarion is close by, that's 4 wounds. In melee, with Biologus Purifier with the heavy Plague Weapons, they will be doing 4.4 wounds. Actually, the Biotic Weapons are better in this configuration, but mostly we are using the heavy Plague Weapons. If we have Mortarion, that's 6 wounds. And basically, if we combine these 10 Plague Marines with Biologus, we use the grenade stratagem, we shoot at it at 6 inches, we charge it in melee, and Mortarion is nearby, we can just about do 12 wounds and take out the Nightbringer. But it's really, everything has to be aligned, and you have to have Mortarion close by to be able to take Nightbringer with his combo. Mortarion himself, shooting in melee, he can do 6 wounds on the Nightbringer. He will be taking 7 wounds back, so Mortarion could also handle maybe the Nightbringer by himself. But you are risking also that he will be going down in the process. If we look at, let's say, Thousand Suns shooting with rubrics, with the Warp Flamers, with Ahriman, that's 5 wounds, including Ahriman's psychic abilities. Magnus the Red shooting at 6 inches, 3.4 wounds, and in melee he can do 4 wounds. Angron charging with a lot of attacks, it's only 6 wounds because they can't ignore the modifier. So really, it's really tough to get enough damage to do it. You have to, if you want to take it out, you need to use very high firepower and do a lot of, combine a lot of damage from many units to be able to do it. Shooting with it with one vehicle will not do anything. So now we're reaching to the overall per point comparison of the Nightbringer, and you see here the average damage versus the typical targets I'm simulating for infantry and vehicles, and we can see Nightbringer compared to some other big scary units like Mortarion, Magnus, Angron, the Great and Clean One, or a Rampager Knight, for example, and we see that in the melee damage output per 100 points, even now with the point increase, the Nightbringer has the highest damage output for both infantry and especially for vehicle targets. As we saw, it can split a Land Raider in one go. So if you're not careful, you will be losing a lot of points. Also, it has very high durability index. The index is basically an index of 100, means it's based on a Predator tank. So the Nightbringer has a 185, so it's much more durable than some of the other units. We see Mortarion has a durability index of 137. The only thing that now can match the durability index per point, this is point corrected everything, of course, it's the Great and Clean One, and you can see the second line here for the Nightbringer. This is his stats point corrected with his previous points of 255, where he had even more higher damage output and even more durability, which was a bit broken probably, and now they try to correct it with 290 points. So, reaching to the summary and final thoughts, the Nightbringer is dangerous is posing a serious damage and threat to many units, especially versus vehicles, the single unit targets where he can use his strike profile. He can take out most of the vehicles in one go. Big squads of Terminators would be able to sustain some hits, or the Primarchs can also take some hits, but they are not very efficient themselves, bringing the Nightbringer down, especially with the reanimation protocols. He can be returned. I mean, you can maybe block him up for a couple of turns, and as we saw, it's very difficult to pile up sufficient damage in one turn, let's say, to take him out. Mortarion could be useful because he has a nice aura that is counteracting the Necrodermis. But even then, it's as you saw in the tables before, it's not easy to do the 12 wounds required. A lot of commitment, let's say, to take him out. His only real weakness I can see is the slow move, 6-inch move. So it will take time if you place. Yeah, you have to be mindful where he is, where he can go and charge. Probably blocking its path with some cheap units that you're expecting to lose. Probably ignoring it could be, for most armies, probably try to ignore the Nightbringer is probably the way to go and focus on the other part of the army, let's say. And at least now he's 295 points, but at 255, definitely much better than everything else. Now it's a bit more balanced, but still, as we saw on the per point comparison, still very dangerous. But probably ignoring it, blocking it, and try to avoid that it kills your high value targets, and especially your vehicles, is important. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your experience from facing it on the tabletop. I'm always happy to hear your comments. And as always, a very special thanks to all my patrons and YouTube supporters for your continued support and suggestions and etc. And with these words, General Yannis signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye bye.